The Pretty Well podcast. I'm Lisa Smith, and I'm so excited to bring you our guest today. Today, we're talking with Anu Simh. And Anu is a board certified functional health coach and the founder of the Nine Arms of Wellness. She specializes in helping busy women lose weight and maintain their goal weight by focusing on gut health. Her personalized and unique philosophy has successfully guided hundreds of women in achieving and maintaining their goals. Now, she is a microbiome specialist. So that's what her work emphasizes, along with plant-based nutrition and sustainable science-backed methods to reverse lifestyle-related diseases. She's also a plant-based chef and she's a published author. She wrote a book called Flourish from Within, Feed Your Gut for Lifelong Health, which talks about the importance of gut health and overall well-being, and it has more than 50 plant-based recipes. Welcome, Anu. I cannot wait for us to get started today.
Thank you, Lisa. Such a pleasure. I'm excited to have this conversation as well.
It's good to have you here. Gut health is a very important and often misunderstood foundational piece of our health. But your story is rooted in what happens with the microbiome. So talk to us about what happened when you first adopted the American way of eating when you came to the US.
Well, honestly, the first few years was just plain fun.
Mm.
I just adopted the American ways, late nights, alcohol, bottomless brunches, you name it. I was just so excited to live the American dream, and I fully embraced it. And it was exciting. If someone had told me that your 20s kind of determines how your 30s and 40s play out, gosh, I wouldn't have paid the price that I paid.
Mm.
Because starting in my 30s, my gut was a mess. I was bloated. And on the outside, I looked very normal. Everything was fine. My labs were normal. I went from doctor to doctor in search of answers. But I felt like no one was really connecting the dots. I really knew intuitively that it was something to do with my gut. And just around that time, and we're talking about a time when we didn't have internet or chat GPT, I had to go to the library, sit down for hours, put my science background to work and figure out what the heck is happening with me because I wasn't getting answers from the system.
Mm.
And that's when I really literally bumped into the microbiome. The Human Microbiome Project had started. The Sonnenbergs had written their book, and I was like, this is so fascinating. And that's when I realized that, yeah, something is happening, and it may not even be my digestion. It could also be my immune system completely going out of whack. And when of course, I'm not an immunologist, but I think we have enough research to tell us that 70% of the immune system is in the gut. And our microbes are they are like the training ground for our immune system. They like the teachers who say, hey, this is a friend, this is a foe, stay down, you don't have to react to this. And the way I was eating or I'd eaten had really kind of caused this havoc in my immune system. There was no balance. I was responding to everything. Both parts of the immune system was just reacting kind of poorly. And what started out initially in my 30s was frequent colds and, bloating and things like that. Just went into full-fledged responses where my immune system was responding to everything,
Mm.
allergies and autoimmunity sort of situation. I was reacting to myself and the stress. So, what innocently started as the American kind of life really resulted in just a total mess. But it has a happy ending because that's what I want to let people know, that when you start taking care of your forever guests, because they're not going anywhere, these trillions of bacteria live in your gut. And from an evolution standpoint, we have just handed over the digestion of fiber to them. And in return, we give them a place to live, and they produce such amazing compounds to keep our inflammation down. They take care of our immune system. They do so much behind the scenes. Any 20-year-old listening to this, I would say there is a price to pay when you don't take care of these guys.
Mm,
and they're not going anywhere. And this is probably the best heirloom you can pass on to the next generation.
mm. That is a great
And I
point.
feel so fortunate that we are at a place where learning so much about the microbiome.
So what was your turning point, Anu? What did you figure out that you had to do to take care of the problems you started experiencing?
It's very interestingly so. I mean, this is back many, many years ago in 2010. And the first thing I noticed was the researchers were talking about, hey, this thing called fiber. You need to eat more of that because when you eat more fiber, you produce these very healthy metabolites called short chain fatty acids, butyrate in particular, and your body responds to it, and your gut lining is better because of that. Your inflammation drops, all of this stuff. And here I am, having written the book and researched for the past 4 years, just really diving deep into this research. And that's pretty much what comes up every single time, that fiber is a hero. So
Mm,
the message hasn't changed that much. We're just discovering that there are so many more things that are looking at how we feed the microbiome. We know more about that now, but the underlying message is the same: feed them so they can serve you. So that's exactly what I did. I went back to, gosh, before I moved to the States, what was I eating? I was eating a lot of, I came from a South Indian Brahmin family, so we ate a lot of plant based foods, lentils, like the Indian dal, lots of veggies. So our thali was like my mom would just prepare so many different kinds of veggies, and we have like diversity like you wouldn't believe. And I just started mono eating. I would say, oh, veggies, that's like carrots and potatoes and peas and things like that. So I just went back to basic things that my body had in the past. And I thought, oh, maybe my immune system is going to remember eventually. Initially, it was really difficult. I had to start adding some enzymes and, some help with the foods that I was taking because I couldn't digest beans.
mm,
Beans were like a part of my childhood and I couldn't digest them. But with time and with slowly feeding the microbiome, I still remember the day when I could actually eat like sopa de frijoles, like black bean soup, and without any help from any enzymes, just my wonderful body, its intelligence. Gosh, I was in tears that day. And if anyone has gone through that kind of gut uncertainty, how you respond to food, and you will know what I'm saying. It is frustrating because you
mm.
don't know how you respond to things. So that was like a turning point for me. And I never looked back. I knew that I had to start taking care of this thing with its innate wisdom. I need to support it with the nutrition it deserves. Yeah.
I love that you found through all your research and knew that fiber is the cornerstone to our gut health. It doesn't get its due. We just think, oh, fiber, I know fiber. But as you do the research for our listeners, those are prebiotics. I try to always differentiate because people are like, what does all that mean? Well, probiotics are the good bacteria that you were talking about that we want to replenish and we want to make sure we have the right concentrations of. But then those prebiotics, those fibers are what feed that good army and they keep it growing and strong
Yeah.
and resilient. So I love that that's what you came back to. And there's so many
Yeah.
delicious ways to get them. Let's talk about
Yeah.
you talked about some of them, legumes
Yeah.
and veggies. What
So,
are your
yeah,
top
that, and you're
five?
so right. You're so right. I think when we share with our clients, oh, you need to up your fiber, it is such an foreign thing to people because, I mean, you start by saying that fiber comes from plant sources. So, the very first thing I tell them is anchor your protein.
Mm,
I mean, we're at a stage now, Lisa, that everyone's like going after single nutrients. And it is not about just one food or one nutrient. It is about what you do every single day and what you have on your plate. That becomes more important. So I tell my clients, listen, whatever protein that makes you happy, some of you will choose animal protein, some of you will choose plant protein, some of you are pescatarians, lacto vegetarians, whatever, anchor that protein, surround with fiber. And
Mm,
this is pretty much the message of my book. And what I notice with clients is just having a goal to increase, because we hear this, up your fiber to 40 grams a day. Well, if you don't have a system, how do you do that?
mm,
It's just willy-nilly. And our brain doesn't function like that. It doesn't remember every single day, I need to do this, this, and this, and up it to 40 grams. You start with foundational layers, and that's your fruits and veggies, however you want to eat it. Some people will go with more raw foods, others will like it more steamed. It's
mm,
an individual choice. Then we add the enhancers, and the enhancers are your good fats, your herbs and spices, your fermented foods, and finally some functional foods. Functional foods are like your beta glucans, polyphenols, flavonoids, because they all work together synergistically to make this diet more microbial friendly. So your microbial profile changes. Because the
mm,
idea is that you build a resilient microbiome. And a
mm.
resilient microbiome is one that has both species richness and evenness.
Yes, I love that. Let's talk about your book, Flourish from Within. You've given us some insight into what you're discussing in your book. Let's talk in more detail about why you wrote it and what you're excited about that it brings to the people who buy it.
Yeah. Honestly, I never thought I would write a book, but then my clients kept saying, "You talk so much about the microbiome. You have so many ideas on how to feed it. I wish there was one book that would give me all that information." And before, I was sending people to other books. And so they planted that initial seed, and, and maybe I should, And I still remember I was going to a microbiome conference, and the Uber driver who picked me up said, "Hey, where are you headed?" And I said, "I'm going to a microbiome conference." And he said, "What's that?" And that's when it hit me that my book cannot be this scientific, language that's going to not include someone like him into the conversation.
Right.
So from that moment, I started wondering, like, how do I do this so it's accessible to everyone? And after I did all of that research for 3 to 4 years, I started deciding, how do I put this book together? So I said, okay, I need to keep it simple, but I still need to educate the reader about the importance of the microbiome. So but the first 10 chapters are really about what the microbiome does, and how they respond to diet and lifestyle and all of that. The second section talks about a diet that I propose based on all of the diets that have been researched, which clearly kind of define what feeding a microbiome diet looks like. And then the last section is all recipes. And for me, it was very important that I was inclusive of all culture, because coming from a different country, I realized that we call this a melting pot. We have people from all over, and we all have our favorite cuisine. Like for me, it's Mexican food. I love Mexican food, but I will probably Indianize it, because that's my background. So I started thinking about that. I thought, well, all my clients are the same. I have clients who want to go back to their heritage foods. So
Hmm.
I kept that in mind while writing the book, honoring every client and their background. So I hope I did okay there, because it's a mix of recipes. It's not a nod to one culture or one cuisine, because my clients are from all over. So I just needed to respect that.
Sounds very eclectic. So a lot of people do think they have to give up as they're trying to clean up their diet. They think they have to give up some of their favorite foods from growing up, from their culture, from their family traditions. How do you help them turn those recipes or those favorite foods into gut supportive, microbiome supportive, balanced recipes?
Yeah. A lot of clients, Lisa, they come to me for weight management, weight loss, and they've gone through restrictive diets. They've tried everything to lose weight and keep it off. And your restrictive diets has really kind of caused havoc in your microbial profile. So when clients come to me, I usually start asking them questions about what kind of food and cuisine that they like.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example of a client who just I have been working for the past maybe 3, 4 months, and she came to me. I need to drop this weight. I need to feel better. I'm tired of taking medications for all these metabolic issues. But underneath that, when we started talking, she talked about her grandmother she was taking care of, who was like 100 years old. And that led to that connection she had with her culture and the recipes that her grandma used to make. And I thought, this is how this weight loss can become um, a weight that she's going to be able to live at by really bringing her culture and her background in. So that's pretty much what we did. We brought in all of her foods and things that worked for grandma because she came from a generation where they were farmers or they did a lot more labor. We sit and do this all day. So we had to tweak some of that, take out things that were too fattening for her. But the underlying message that she heard was my foods are not bad. It just needs to be tweaked a little bit for modern life and where my body is right now, being menopausal or postmenopausal. So that's pretty much what I do to feed the microbiome. I really start with the client. It is always client led.
Mm. Yeah, that's the way we really do see long-term life-changing
Yeah,
results by personalizing and figuring out what's going to work. They're basics for everyone, but then when we dial it in, that's when the
yeah.
needle really starts to move. How do people use the suggestions in your book and personalize those?
Well, I've just started a membership and I also have an app that goes along with the book. So it's
Wow.
a lot of free information, lots of recipes, a fiber tracker. So anyone who buys the book will also get the app. And so my passion is to get more people to care for their microbiome. And if they did have resources to do that, it's just going to be easier. So in the membership, I offer things like a 5-day challenge on how to increase your fiber intake. And along the way, I talk about the different things that I bring up in the book, like immune health or CDs, chronic diseases that we see such a rise. I have many clients who come to me for autoimmune conditions. I have them connect the dots.
Great. That really brings community in, so it's not just DIY when you pick up the book. Well, let's talk about the 9 arms of wellness. That is a way you work with your client.
Yeah,
Talk about what the 9 arms are. I love it. It's very comprehensive. It's completely holistic.
yeah.
Tell us
And
about
again, that also started with my clients. When I started working with my clients, I realized that we start with food as the big needle mover. But I realized that for a lot of people, it was how they held on to stress, how they were not being very mindful when they were eating. They were not paying attention to movement or sleep. And luckily for us now, sleep is getting the due that it deserves. But when I started, it was still like something that people weren't talking a lot about. I brought all of that into the 9 arms. I
it.
realized that it wasn't just one arm that did the heavy lifting, but it needed that supporting cast like breath work and meditation, mindfulness. And now we have a lot of neuroscience and research that supports that. But at the time, it was just that I intuitively knew that would help my clients.
Mm.
But and I feel really glad that it's panned out this way. Everyone is on the same page with, oh, yeah, of course breath work is important or self-care is important.
Yeah,
Connections are important.
for sure. And with your passion for the microbiome, let's just talk about the impact that chronic stress has on the microbiome because we can do all the things. We can feed it properly, we can rebalance it, we can go with the foundational approach, but if we are under constant elevated cortisol levels due to chronic stress, let's talk about the impact that has.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. There's a lot of research that talks about the impact of stress on the gut, because when you think about it, the gut brain axis is so important.
Mm.
The gut is sending more messages to the brain than the other way around, but through the vagus nerve. 90% of serotonin is made in the gut, GABA, all of these neurotransmitters are made in the gut. When we are stressed, our ability to produce or to maintain the microbes that actually help us with these neurotransmitters really diminishes. Cortisol is not a bad hormone. It's just too much at the wrong time can cause problems. So, what I've seen in practice is, along with other things, if they start relaxing in their body, then it affects everything. Most women come to me complaining about constipation.
Mm.
Gut motility is so connected to your neurotransmitters. If you are low in serotonin, that could be one reason you're constipated. And of course, we do the first 4 or 5 things to figure out, why is this person constipated? Is it fluid or fruit or fitness or things like that? But a lot of people who even think that they are not constipated have very poor motility issues. And it is connected to your neurotransmitters. It is connected to your microbial profile. So once we connect those dots and start, how do we address that? A lot of people feel like, oh, I have pathogenic bacteria that I need to get rid of. But when you're killing pathogens, you're also killing the good guys. So my approach to this has always been, let the good guys do the work. You just feed them the the prebiotics, so you have more bacterial diversity and they do the heavy lifting. So that's why feeding the microbiome becomes very important for lifelong health. Yeah.
You've seen in practice the results of clearing
Yeah.
the gut and seeing the skin improve. Yeah, I've seen the same thing. It's fascinating to see
Yeah.
that clear up. It's just this
Yeah.
amazing
Yeah,
byproduct.
and skin companies are really getting it now. We have so many things called probiotic cleanser, and
Yes.
I don't know if they work, but I think internally it does seem to work for most people.
Yeah. I actually do. I have used a probiotic cleanser off and on from a company called Lemongrass Spa, and it works. It's incredible because it preserves the microbiome of the
Yeah.
skin. So it leaves the good bacteria that we've talked about in the gut microbiome,
Mm.
but it washes away the bad bacteria that could be aging or could be contributing to acne or any kind of skin problems.
And the dry skin also. I think there are a couple of studies that I came across where somebody who lived in a non-industrialized part of the world coming saw how her skin changed and completely. It was dry and angry, and she realized it was all the water, the hot showers, and all of that. And as soon as she went back to her tribe, her skin cleared up. Everything was fine again. So I suspect it's way more than just the gut, but I think there are many players here. But it could be also the toxins, environmental toxins here, the overexposure to so many things that could also be playing havoc to our skin.
Mhm.
And
No,
that barrier, right? The skin
right.
barrier. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about it. When we think about city water and all the chemicals that are in tap
Oh,
water,
yeah.
unbelievable. It really is. We put in a water filter. We've moved in the past year and a half. I was starting to have hair loss and definitely weird skin
Mhm.
rashes and sensitivities. And we put in a whole house water filter and it changed everything.
I have experienced that as well.
Well, with the people you've worked with, what are some of the most surprising patterns you've seen? Or maybe they tend to be trends where you've looked at them in how you work with your
Mhm.
clients that you've seen that you thought, well, it's no wonder they've had these problems for so many years and
Yeah.
getting to the root of that with them.
Well, I think the biggest win for my clients is that they lose the weight and keep it off,
Mm,
because they've gone on so many of these yo-yo diets and things like that. And it's largely because they've been through programs that they're given a certain formula and say, do this.
mhm,
It is important to also know where the client is coming from, their relationship with food, because food is social, food is conversation, food is memory. And once we realize that, then I always start at the very end and I reverse engineer it. I ask my clients, what does maintenance of this weight look like for you?
mm,
Where is the ideal weight you want to be? And how do you envision keeping yourself at that? So then I have a good idea of what are non negotiables for them. Like, I need
mm,
to have a glass of wine every week, or Friday night pizza, that's a non-negotiable. So I learn about that, and then it becomes easier for me for me to plan with the client. Okay, so these are things that we need to keep in mind when we structure the program for you. So it's not like you lose a bunch of weight and then you gain it back. So
Right.
that's when I discovered that the microbes have a huge role to play in yo-yo weight gain. That was a
Mhm.
game changer for me. I had more confidence in how I approached weight loss. Up
Mhm.
until then, it was more like so dependent on calories in, calories out. So I realized it wasn't just energy balance, it was your microbiome, it was your brain, it was your hormones. And as a coach, how do I help you reframe your mindset? So all of that played such a big part in that client. The ones that I constantly hear, and I'm sure you do too, is, oh, I feel I have more energy. I What happened to the cravings? And when I ask people about cravings, like, oh, I don't have any cravings, they forget the pain.
Mhm.
And that's wonderful. I think everyone should have hope. And
Mm.
having gone through all this myself, that is my biggest thing. Health is everybody's birthright, and
Mm.
it's our responsibility to claim it.
It is. And I love the tools that you help people put in their toolbox. It's helping the microbiome flourish. It's dealing with mindset. It's looking at cultural ways of eating and incorporating those, but just modifying them enough that it still works toward the goal. So you bring so much value to your clients. I appreciate that. I'm excited to check out your book as well. But for people who are listening today, say the listener who's exhausted, they're inflamed, they have taken all the pieces of information they've seen over the years and they've tried them all in different times, but they still haven't seen progress. What's one small step they could take today that would start them on the path of healing and flourishing within, even before they got the book or anything? What's something?
Yeah. I always tell my clients, figure out what your weakest link is.
Mm,
Really understanding, because you have more wisdom about your body than I will ever have about you.
mhm,
So buy back that power, or that you are the master of your body and you have the wisdom to make the next decision. And let that decision, or let that next step, not be so huge that it's going to engulf you and make you feel like, I can't stick to this. We're in such a rush to just get rid of the pain or whatever. But it took a long time to get you to the state of dis-ease. And it's going to take you some time to climb out of it. So just respect that the body knows what it's doing. You just need to give it that little nudge. So if it is, let's say, cardiovascular issues, maybe your family is struggling with cardiovascular issues, think about a few things that you've heard, or, what can I eat that's going to protect my heart? What
mhm.
if it's someone with cancer in the family? There's enough information now that you don't even, need to pick up a book. So that kind of thinking really helps you just kind of fine tune where you are and then make your food rules very simple. I think we overcomplicate and we look at single nutrients. My mantra is very simple: anchor your protein, surround with fiber sources, pick a good fat that works for your body, your brain.
That's very simple. You're
Yeah.
right. So the takeaway today would be pick what your weak link is, whatever that may be. It could be family line genetics, or it could just be a struggle that someone's been dealing with for a long time or even a short time. And then begin to look at your framework, anchor your protein. That goes hand in hand with what I tell people all the time. You need to get the right amount of protein. You're balancing your blood sugar, you're maintaining muscle, all the other benefits of
I
protein.
mean, we could do an entire hour on protein because I have a lot to say about protein.
We could do a whole other episode on protein.
Yeah.
It's so important, but then surrounding it with good fibers and adding healthy fats.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. That's a pretty simple framework that people can remember. And begin to, even if that's too overwhelming, start just with protein. And then after that feels comfortable, add on the fiber.
Even just starting simple, like I'm just going to add this one source of fiber along with I think instead of saying fiber, maybe I just kind of paint the picture of the plate. There's
Mhm.
your favorite protein, whatever it is, chicken, turkey, tofu, and then you have a green salad, maybe some whole grains if you can handle it. And again, it depends on what you're struggling with. If it's a gut issue, we take note of that. That's it. It can be very simple. And then that small, simple green salad can, using my format in the book, you could add things to it, mushrooms, beans, as your body allows and as you heal. And it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be complicated.
So tell us how people find your book, work with you, and learn more about you.
Yeah. Well, my website is ninearmsofwellness.com. My social media is at Nine Arms of Wellness. My book is available on Amazon. Once you buy the book, there's a QR code in the book that will lead you to a page that will give you information about the app. And then you are invited into my world and you can take your first quiz about your microbiome and then we get started. You're part of the fiber crazy world, we talk about fiber a lot and poop and all the good stuff.
Well, I love that you have an app that goes with it. Are you techie? Who taught you all that? This is
No,
amazing.
I have a lot of family who helped me now.
It's
I
amazing.
mean, no, it's like a web-based app right now, but it's getting a lot of love. So I think by next year, it's going to be a full-fledged app.
That's excellent. Your membership is an add-on, is that correct? That someone
Yeah.
would choose to
Mhm.
join
It's
and
very nominal, like $19 or something like that. It's
excellent.
very affordable. And that was important to me too, that everyone's taking care of their micro, because this is so important. Food is so important. And we are having more conversations about food than ever before, about ultra processed foods. But along with that, there's a lot of noise. And a
Mm,
lot of it is not supported by nutrition science. And
right.
that's frustrating for people and like, what did I just hear? And if we are confused, imagine the person without any of that nutrition background. It's so confusing. And that is my goal. Keep it simple so you can stick to it.
A lot of it is just that it can confuse people to the point that they say, just forget it. I'm not going to do anything. There's too much conflicting information, but I like how your book streamlines it and it lays out a process people can follow and enjoy. It's not a diet, it's a way to enjoy making sure your microbiome is as healthy as it can be, which helps every other aspect of life.
I don't want to sound political, but we are a country that's been very divided lately.
Mm,
I think of this as an inclusion, and food is a great way to do that because we all have food bias, healthy user bias. There's so much of that going on.
mm.
So, telling people that you have the wisdom, you don't need anyone else to give you anything more, but let's, as a community, foster that innate wisdom that you have. I love the idea of exploring that.
Right, bringing unity through. I love that too. Well, Anu, this has been so much fun talking with you. Thank you for coming on today and sharing all of your expertise. I will have all your links in the show notes so that people can buy your book and
An
check out
image.
the site. Yes, that is a beautiful book. 4 years in the making. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Guys, thanks for listening in. Go check out all that Anu offers, especially her book on Amazon. I'll have the links in the show notes.
Thank you, Lisa. It's such
Thanks, Anu. And until next week, stay pretty well. Bye.